Welcome back, Ole Miss fans. This is Zach Moreth with another episode of the Rebel Talk podcast. And today we're going to break down a little bit what happened against Oklahoma. We're going to talk about the win going into the first half, which was really not good football going into the second half as well. And then going into a little bit about what Lane said in the post game, following it up and ending it with a kind of a recap against Illinois today. The basketball team looked incredible. It was a great showing from the fans as well. So we're just kind of going to recap here a little bit about what happened and the weekend. So just getting into this Oklahoma matchup, Ole Miss wins 26-14. Really just a sloppy game in the first half. Both teams looked really questionable. Oklahoma's looked questionable all year long, and so is Ole Miss at times. And the defense didn't look great. They made a couple nice stops here and there. And after the scripted drive from the offense, they looked pretty horrendous as well. There was a total of 162 offensive yards coming from Ole Miss offensively, including 43 yards on the ground. So they essentially had no run game. They were dropping passes. They did a weird reverse play when they brought out J.J. Pegues in that jumbo package, and they snapped it. He flipped it to Juice Wells, and the play didn't get anywhere. So again, another kind of hit to Charlie Weiss Jr. and this gimmicky offense that they've been going at for some time. It just sometimes it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, it's going to get highlighted, especially when you have the amount of playmakers that you do on this team. And then again, it was something that I talked about going into this week, but Ole Miss defensive line struggled to finish plays against LSU. If you guys remember, Garrett Nussmeier was able to escape the pocket a couple times on that last drive. Make plays with his legs, scramble a little bit, and then find an open receiver. And when you allow the quarterback to, get on his feet, scramble around the pocket, and essentially have as much time as he wants, 9 out of 10 times he's going to find a receiver. We're talking about SEC quarterbacks who have the potential to be NFL players at the end of the day, even if it's a guy like Jackson Arnold. And he did that, on their second touchdown. Going into halftime, that's exactly what he did. The play stayed alive. Princely Umanmielen almost sacked him a couple times, but he failed. And then Jackson Arnold scrambles to this right, makes a nice play, a good catch by the wide receiver in the end zone. And though the coverage was good, coverage isn't meant to be good for a 10 to 15-second play, right? This is supposed to be fast. We're supposed to make the stop. And when you allow the plays to extend like that, it's very easy for opposing teams to score. And it was something we struggled with, and we struggled with a lot in this first half. But things really started to change in the second half. And I don't know if it was adjustments. Lane talked about how because they had a new offensive coordinator, they were throwing a lot of looks at Pete Golding, a lot of unique and different looks than what they'd thrown in previous weeks. So Golding just needed to adjust a little bit. And I feel like he did that in the second half. And that's kind of what Lane alluded to as well. The Ole Miss defensive line went berserk. They finished the game with, I believe, 10 sacks, which is insane. They were absolutely feasting. I was sitting there in the student section, and it felt like every play there was a defensive lineman in the backfield making Arnold scramble or just simply putting him out of his misery and eating him alive in the pocket. Quick shout out to Suntarian Perkins. The true sophomore played a hell of a game. Truly fantastic. He's a future NFL player. He had 4 sacks and 5 tackles for losses. And then that linebacker duo over the middle of the field, TJ Dottery and Pooh Paul, they finished with a combined 22 tackles. And then if you throw Perkins in there, who gets moved around a lot, they finished with 33 of the 88 Ole Miss tackles. So these guys are everywhere, constantly filling the gaps and getting the job done. They did a nice job preventing the run. Again, Oklahoma didn't have much of a run attack, but they made sure it didn't get anywhere. And then in the second half, 10 sacks, you do a fantastic job. You keep a little bit more containment. You prevent Arnold from scrambling, and all of a sudden the Oklahoma offense that looked relatively manageable in the first half becomes one-dimensional, and they have nowhere to go. Offensively in the second half, I thought the team did a great job responding. I don't want to make any assumptions or accusations, but it did appear that there was a change in at least the style of the plays that were being called. And I think a lot of that had to do with Lane taking on a larger role. And again, I don't know that for sure, but there was definitely a change, and you could feel the rhythm start to pick up a little bit. Again, the tight ends got involved again. Prescorn caught that touchdown pass on their first drive of the second half. things were flowing, right? Parrish gets in the mix a little bit. He's running a little more. Bentley, I believe, only got 5 carries. I'd like to see a little more out of Bentley. But excuse me, the run blocking was nowhere near the level of pass blocking that was being executed by the Ole Miss offensive line. Felt like every run it was 2 or 3 yards versus every time Jackson Dart stepped back in the pocket, he had all day to throw, and he only ended up getting sacked once. So it just proves my point right there that the pass game was doing its job yesterday, even without Trey Harris. And I know Trey was hurt, but I honestly think this was a wake up call for this offense that when you get the ball in the hands of your playmakers that aren't Trey Harris, good things can happen. And for some reason, we hadn't seen that all season long, but finally, guys like Daquan Wright and Caden Priestcorn are getting their feet wet a little bit. Juice Wells had a really nice catch across the sideline coming towards the student section. And of course, Jordan Watkins, who I still believe caught a touchdown. That looked like a touchdown to me. If anything, the Pegues run didn't look like a touchdown. So I felt like they kind of flipped the calls there, but Watkins made a great catch on the outside. So now when you implement Harris back, which is hopefully against Arkansas, you don't become this one-dimensional offense that's throw a slant route to Trey Harris 10 times a game or Trey deep ball, let's see what we can do. Get in some new formations like you did. Jackson said that's exactly what they did. They ran a little 12 personnel with the 2 tight ends. And if you have to keep that out there in order for the offense to be productive, then do it. It worked against a really good Oklahoma defense. And in that second half, they outscored them 16-0. The offense was clicking. Another thing Jackson said is those last 2 drives essentially don't even count because they're just trying to take clock off or run clock, only do run plays, take clock off the rest of the game, try and get to that finish line. And that's exactly what they did. So I don't really even count those. And aside from that, I thought the ball was moving a little bit. The fourth quarter wasn't as efficient as the third quarter, but the second half adjustments, it was everything to this game. And if you come out flat and you lose to Oklahoma, the season's done. The season's over. You probably get a lot of red shirts, people going to transfer, guys getting ready for the NFL who don't want to play anymore to risk injury. And it's a crazy snowball effect that was a possibility at one point. The team looked horrible in the first half and very discouraged too. But they came out, and I thought they did an incredible job responding. And this was finally some adversity that I thought they pushed through. Against Kentucky, we faced adversity. Don't think we persevered through it. Obviously, we didn't, and we lost. Against LSU, we had the lead all game, started pressing at the end, gave up a couple touchdowns, and the offense couldn't do anything. So it was another failed response to adversity. This was a game against an Oklahoma team who has a lot of talent. Let's not forget that. Oklahoma is a huge brand. It's an incredible program. Venables is a good coach. They're stacked defensively, and I know their offense isn't clicking, but they still have playmakers and 4 and 5 stars all over the field. And Ole Miss was able to handle business and overcome some crazy adversity because, again, you got to remember Oklahoma was getting the ball in the second half, and the defense came out. I believe they got a 3 and out. And the offense came down and scored right away. So awesome stuff. You'd like to see that momentum carry into Fayetteville, but again, we'll see. Got a lot of time until Saturday. Going into Lane Kiffin's post game, I thought it was interesting that he noted Micah Pettis was supposed to play this game until it sounded like either Friday night or Saturday morning. He told the staff he couldn't. So Julius Buelow played right tackle, and he was the highest graded pass blocker of the entire offensive line. So if Pettis is good to go next week, do you put Pettis out there who struggled and gets a lot of holding calls, or do you keep what was working in Julius Buelow and keep him on the line and see if he can progress a little bit and maybe get more effective in the run game? These are questions that have to be asked, and they're going to. We're going to find out those answers later in the week here. I also thought it was strange with Walter Nolan, who appeared to hurt his leg, I believe, late in the first half. And then Lane made it sound like he decided to not re-enter the game. He made it sound like Walter was good to go and the decision was up to him, and he chose not to, which we don't know anything. Walter could have been in a lot more pain than perceived to Lane, or he could have been wanting to protect himself from getting a further injury. Maybe it was an injury from the past that's been lingering in his mind. No one knows, but it's a strange thing that I thought we should point out and definitely talk about a little bit. And then one of the things It really did bother me. So a reporter asked Lane about being bowl eligible, and he said something along the lines of he was appreciative of her saying that, or him saying that, because he feels like everyone around here wants to win a national championship, or else it seems like the season is a bust. Let's all remember there was a quote in 2021 when Lane was asked about being bowl eligible, and he got frustrated with the reporter and said, that's the standard around here. Then a year later in 2022, we lose to Alabama, a two-loss Alabama team who we should have beat in Vaught Hemingway Stadium. And the questions asked about the production from Quinshad Judkins. And he goes on this long tangent about how we shouldn't be looking at anything positive from the game because we lost. And if the standard before he was here that was that we are supposed to lose that game, that the standard's going to change and that he's going to change the standard and Ole Miss is going to be this mighty winning football program. So now we fast forward into 2024 when the Ole Miss football media pages are pushing this agenda of the last dance like nothing I've ever seen, and this agenda of the best transfer portal class and all these guys returning, and it's natty or bust. The players have said this, and Lane comes out in the press conference and says, yeah, I appreciate you recognizing that we're bowl eligible, because he thinks everyone's going to get mad if we don't win the Natty. Yeah, it's a stretch that we're going to get upset if Ole Miss doesn't win the Natty, but the fact of the matter is fans are going to be upset when you lose to Kentucky and LSU, because if you don't make the playoffs, the season is a complete bust. So when you set the precedent that Ole Miss is going to be a winning program, and then you get upset for us trying to hold you accountable for it, I didn't understand it. I don't like that at all, because this is kind of on him for establishing that we're going to be a winning program, which I believe we are. But the fans we've put in enough, the donations and the support and staying all four quarters. We've done the things that he's asked. So when we ask for a return and get upset when we lose to teams like Kentucky and LSU, I think it's valid. And I don't think it's valid for Lane to say that to the media. Again, you set the precedent. We're here to support that, but it's time to go out and prove it. It's time to go out and make the playoffs. It's time to go and put together a natty run with one of the most talented rosters in college football. Basketball time, folks. Let's talk a little basketball. I thought the team looked incredible today. Chris Beard said it, but shout out to the students and the fans. I think there were more than 7,000 people in attendance, which is shocking for Ole Miss basketball in an exhibition game. This game doesn't count towards anything, though it was televised, and it was against an elite program in Illinois who made a really deep run in March Madness last year. Brad Underwood's one of the best coaches in college basketball, and in his post-game press conference, he was very complimentary of not only Chris Beard, but the players. And one of the things he kept saying was how old and experienced this Ole Miss team is. I think he even said Ole Miss was old as dirt. That was one of his quotes, and that's a great thing. You have guys like Matt Morrell, who've been at Ole Miss and established themselves here. Jamin Brakefield, another guy who started his career at Duke, playing with the best coach in college basketball. You have guys like Malik Dia who come and transfer in, McKeel Brown-Jones, Dre Davis. They have all this experience, and now you put it together. Something special is going to happen, and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on this group. Just going into today's game, it's crucial to understand the state of the program. Looking back a year ago, the first 3 games that I watched in person for Ole Miss basketball, we beat Alabama State by 10. We beat Eastern Washington by 11, and then we beat Detroit Mercy by 1. The first game of the year I watched this year, I know it's an exhibition, but it's a good measuring stick. We can all admit that. We host an elite basketball program, and we wiped the floor with them. Brad Underwood said it. The game was over in 4 minutes. There was energy. There was physicality. Defense and rotations were on fire. A guy I want to point out is McKeel Brown-Jones. He's from Philly. Chris Beard's talked about it. This guy's tough as nails, and he is physical. He can jump. He can get any rebound that you ask, and he's a guy who you didn't have on the team last year. Another transfer in Dre Davis, who comes from Seton Hall playing in the Big East, which you can argue is the best conference in college basketball. He can shoot threes. He can finish. He's lengthy. He can play good defense. there are all these guys who you didn't have last year who decided to come to Ole Miss to potentially make a really deep March Madness run, and I think that's special, and I think they put that on display today. Also, Sean Padula is a difference maker. Chris Beard referred to him as a floor general, and that's exactly what he is. I don't think he's going to have any performance that's going to leave you shell shocked, but it's the intangibles of him. It's him being able to set up and run an offense in a true point guard role that almost didn't have last year. Now that Juju Murray can fit into the shooting guard role, he looks better. He can still take care of the basketball and run point guard if Ole Miss needs. So there's a lot more leverage within the team and versatility. So I don't think guys are pressing as hard. I don't think Jamin Brakefield feels like he has to go down and make a crazy layup every drive because he doesn't. Defensively, Ole Miss caused 22 turnovers against Illinois, and Underwood revealed to us that when Illinois scrimmaged against Butler, another really good program, they turned the ball over 7 times. So Ole Miss essentially tripled the turnovers of Illinois, just again proving Chris Beard and the type of defense that he preaches, and that's exactly what he came here to do. He preaches an incredible defense, he preaches physicality, and with that comes a lot of turnovers. And Ole Miss proved that today. I think this program's really trending in the right direction quickly. A fun little stat I pointed out, of the 8 players who played 10 minutes or more in the game, all of them made 3-pointers except 2 players, and those 2 players were Matt Morrell and Davon Barnes. For those who don't know, Davon Barnes shot 40% from 3 last year, and Matt Morrell has always been an elite 3-point shooter. So your 2 best 3-point shooters don't make threes, but every other key player does. That's including Malik Dia, Dre Davis, Mikhail Brown-Jones, Sean Padula, Juju Murray, and even Duke Lafke. I didn't include him in the stat, but he made a 3 today. There are guys who can score at will, and this is exactly what was missing from the team last year. So I'm really proud to just talk about what Chris Beard has done and his acknowledgement and his engagement with the fans of Ole Miss, and really putting together a team that is going to impress us and make us come out and cheer for them, because this was a statement made, and I believe they start their season next Monday. But he came out with this squad, and he showed exactly what Ole Miss basketball should be and has the potential to be. Scores are all over the place. Everyone can make a 3 on this team, and everyone can defend too. I'm really confident in this team, and I would fully predict that they end up going on a nice run in March Madness. I see him somewhere in the Sweet 16. I think that's probably our ceiling, but again, I'm not sure how the team's going to look in March, and it could be worse, it could be better. But based off that performance today, there are some promising things going on inside the pavilion. That's all I got for you guys. Coming back on Monday, we got press conferences from Lane Kiffin and a couple of players. Tuesday, we'll have players, and then I'm sure we'll have some other basketball press conferences throughout the week. We have a women's press conference on Monday. Excuse me, we have women's exhibition game on Monday, women's press conferences throughout the week, but we'll keep you guys posted with all that information. I appreciate you tuning in to this episode of The Rebel Talk. And as always, be sure to stay tuned to therebelwalk.com for all your Ole Miss sports needs. Hotty toddy, go Rebs.